Teachers, what's the most unhinged parent-teacher conference encounter you've ever had? I taught 7th grade English at a public school where the kids were chaotic but at least entertaining, unlike the adults who insisted on breeding them. The wildest parent-teacher conference I ever had happened during my 5th year, when I still had the fragile optimism of someone who hadn't yet realized adults can be significantly less rational than the children they raise. The student was a quiet kid named Milo, the kind who drew dragons on every worksheet and turned essays into high fantasy epics without anyone asking. He wasn't failing, but he was skating close enough that the administration wanted me to intervene because apparently learning is achieved via stern looks and paperwork. I didn't think much of the upcoming conference until the office emailed me saying, "His mom has concerns." That ellipsis ruined my entire week. The mother arrived 20 minutes late, dragging a suitcase behind her, which was already a clue that I wasn't emotionally prepared for whatever she was about to unload. Milo followed her in with his hood up, staring at the floor like he was slowly slipping into astral projection. I tried greeting her politely because some part of me still believed manners could fix anything. She shushed me immediately, raising a finger like a traffic cop, then spent a full minute staring dramatically at the ceiling tiles. When she finally spoke, she announced she was cleansing the electromagnetic field of the conference room. My brain considered escaping through my ear canal. She started by informing me that Milo shouldn't be expected to complete any assignments involving narrative structure because their family rejected linear time. I almost asked if she wanted me to grade his work based on the curvature of space-time, but I enjoy keeping my job, so I just nodded like a malfunctioning bobblehead. When I tried to show her his missing assignments, she slid a laminated card across the table titled Indigo Child Rights. No one trains you for this stuff in teacher prep programs. She claimed Milo was gifted on a cosmic level, but hindered by our dense, earthbound curriculum, which allegedly prevented his inner frequencies from vibrating at their natural rate. Meanwhile, Milo doodled a wyvern eating a stick figure labeled me, which honestly felt like fair commentary. I attempted to steer the conversation toward practical solutions, like getting him to turn in literally one assignment. She countered by accusing the school of sabotaging his potential because we weren't offering telepathy classes. Her suitcase, by the way, contained binders full of evidence that her child was operating on a higher plane. She opened one and revealed pages of screenshots of his video game achievements, insisting this proved he had strategic omniscience. At this point, any hope I had of surviving the meeting with my sanity intact had already dissolved like cheap chalk in the rain. Then she dropped her real demand. She wanted Milo exempted from all written work because writing anchors him to the physical world, which she believed was harmful. I tried to gently explain that written assignments were kind of the entire point of English class. She slammed her palm on the table, startling both me and her son, and declared I was spiritually stunting him. The volume of her voice suggested she thought decibels were a form of reason. I tried again to clarify what he actually needed, to turn in his essay on the giver, preferably before the heat death of the universe. She wasn't listening. She was too busy reciting a list of alternative assessment methods, which included dream journaling, aura drawings, and thought transmission feedback sessions. I wish someone would telepathically beam me out of the room. Then came the peak of the madness. She leaned forward conspiratorially and whispered that Milo couldn't finish his homework because otherworldly entities were draining his energy every night. Milo finally spoke then, mumbling, "It's just the cat." She shushed him like he'd revealed state secrets. She explained that when he avoided assignments, it was because he was busy astral traveling, which apparently counted as extracurricular enrichment. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing due to stress-induced hysteria. In a last-ditch act of desperation, she asked if the school could assign a spirit guardian aide to accompany him during lessons. I told her, as politely as possible, that the budget barely allowed us pencils, and she stormed out as if I'd personally blocked her enlightenment journey. Milo lingered behind, gave me a miserable little shrug, and apologized on her behalf in the quietest voice I have ever heard from a child. The kid had more emotional maturity than half the PTA. After they left, I sat in the empty room, staring at the laminated indigo child rights sheet she'd forgotten on the table. It had glitter stuck to it. Actual glitter. The principal later told me that she had emailed a 12-paragraph complaint accusing me of imposing linear thought constructs. Administration, to their credit, told me to ignore it. That was the moment I became fully convinced that teaching isn't about helping kids excel. It's about surviving the adults who raised them without losing the will to live. And Milo? He eventually turned in the essay. It was about a wizard overthrowing a council of delusional mystics who believed they controlled the cosmos. I gave him an A. I had been teaching for 12 years when I met the parent who single-handedly convinced me that some people walk around every day under the impression that they're living inside a police procedural. Her son, whom I'll call Aiden, was a perfectly average 7th grader. Decent grades, forgetful, talked too much, got caught passing notes about Minecraft skins in math class. Totally normal kid stuff. But his mother came in like she was preparing to expose me as part of a deep state conspiracy against her family. The moment she walked into my classroom for the scheduled parent-teacher conference, she slammed a large accordion folder on the table and said without even sitting down, "Before we begin, I want to inform you that I am documenting this entire meeting." Mind you, she didn't have a recording device or a notebook out. She just stared at me. As if the act of saying it put some cosmic witness on alert, I asked if she'd like to sit. She said, "Sitting implies consent to being manipulated." That set the tone. Before I even opened Aiden's gradebook, she rifled through her folder and produced what she called incident reports. They were not incident reports. They were printed screenshots of the class website, attendance logs, homework lists, and at least one printout of a meme I used as a joke on a slide about study habits. She pointed at the meme, which showed a sleepy sloth captioned, "Do homework before sleep claims you," and said, "This is emotional manipulation of minors." I tried very calmly to explain that it was a joke meant to lighten the mood before a review session. She interrupted me. "So you admit humor was used?" The way she said humor made it sound like a banned chemical weapon. Then she switched tactics. She accused me of targeting her son by weaponizing deadlines. She said the reason he hadn't turned in 3 assignments was because the schedule was ambiguous. It wasn't ambiguous. It was in bold on the board in the class portal and verbally repeated daily. I showed her a screenshot where Aiden himself had replied to the assignment post with, "Got it the hikes." She said that didn't prove anything because children often type things under duress. I asked what kind of duress she imagined him being under while replying from his Chromebook in a silent reading period. She said, "Psychological duress is invisible. That's why it's the most dangerous kind." Then she pulled out her pièce de résistance, a binder labeled Exhibit C. I never found out what Exhibits A or B were. Inside was a series of photographs secretly taken of me from the hallway window. Grainy, badly lit, and deeply unsettling. One showed me writing on the whiteboard. Another showed me reading while kids worked independently. Another captured me sneezing. She flipped to one of the photos and said, "Do you see how your stance communicates authoritarianism? Look at your hand position. It suggests a punitive personality." I told her as evenly as possible that the photo showed me holding a dry erase marker. She asked if I denied holding it in a threatening manner. We hadn't even reached the part where we talked about her son's actual performance. Every time I tried to gently pivot back to Aiden, his strengths, his struggles, the fact that he seemed genuinely overwhelmed by homework because he spent most of class drawing dragons, she waved her hand and said, "He is reacting to you. His behavior is a direct response to your behavioral energy signature." At one point, she stood up and began walking around my classroom like she was evaluating a crime scene. She took pictures of the posters, the textbooks, the arrangement of desks. She crouched down and photographed a stack of ungraded quizzes on my counter. She demanded to know why some students had 100s and others had 60s on the same quiz, I told her. Because some students got more answers right than others. She wrote something dramatic in her folder as if I had delivered a confession. The real crescendo came when she produced a homemade flowchart, color-coded, laminated, and utterly detached from all known models of pedagogy, titled Psychological Profile of a Teacher Who Unfairly Singles Out Children. She slid it across the table, asked me to self-assess, then sat back like she was conducting a lie detector test. The flowchart had steps like, does the teacher assign work? If yes, possible control issues. Does the teacher enforce deadlines? If yes, clear signs of dominance fixation. Does the teacher expect respectful behavior in class? If yes, power-seeking tendencies. By the logic of the chart, any teacher who actually taught was diagnosing themselves as a tyrant. After nearly an hour of this, our administrator, who had been keeping an eye on conferences from down the hall, knocked and politely asked if everything was all right. Before I could answer, the mother pivoted like she'd rehearsed it and said, "Thank you for joining us. I believe the institution needs to hear what I've uncovered." She then started reading aloud from her incident reports, accusing me of running an emotional dictatorship and creating curricular trauma. My admin's facial expression was a thing of beauty, the perfect blend of horror and professional neutrality. Eventually, my admin intervened and ended the meeting. The mother left firing off warnings like, "I'll be escalating this," and "paper trails don't lie." She even stood outside my door afterward taking more pictures of my bulletin board. A week later, she sent the district a 27-page email with attachments. The district reviewed it, met with my admin, and concluded in the most delicately worded statement I have ever read that the parents' concerns were not grounded in observable reality. Aiden, bless him, later apologized to me. He said, "My mom gets like that sometimes. She thinks everyone is in a movie." Then he handed in 2 of his missing assignments. But I swear for months afterward, every time I sneezed in class, I half expected a camera flash from the hallway. I taught 7th grade English, which already meant I dealt with a special brand of middle school madness. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for Ethan's mother. Ethan was one of those kids who wasn't bad. He was just allergic to responsibility, missing assignments. Daily. I forgot my Chromebook. Daily. My dog ate my binder. Weekly. Once he said he couldn't write the essay because the government hacked my Google Docs. He was 12. Anyway, conference day rolls around, and his mother marches in carrying a massive 3-inch binder like she's about to present evidence at The Hague. She doesn't even say hello. She drops it on my desk so hard my water bottle tips over. She goes, "I have compiled a record of everything you've done to sabotage my son's academic career." I blinked. "Ma'am, your son has 4 missing essays." She dramatically flips open the binder and reveals screenshots, dozens printed blown up like courtroom exhibits, random emails, Google Classroom assignments, even a screenshot of my Bitmoji. I have no idea what she thought that proved. She says, "If you look here, page 47, you will see an example of blatant psychological manipulation." Page 47 was a screenshot of the assignment titled, "Write a paragraph about what you did over the weekend." She said I was trying to emotionally trap Ethan into revealing personal family information. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. Then she flips to a section labeled Timeline of Defamation, and I swear to God it had dates, times, and notes like Miss H glared at Ethan, hostility. Ms. H called on him when his hand was not raised, targeting. Ms. H wears intimidating colors, psyops, intimidating colors. I looked at my outfit, a cardigan the color of wet oatmeal. Then it gets worse. She pulls out a USB stick, her own USB stick, and says, "I need you to plug this into your computer so I can show you a video." Now listen, I am not stupid. I don't plug random USB sticks into my job computer for anyone. That is how the school district ends up on the news. I politely decline. She insists I decline again. She stands up, slams her hands on my desk, and yells, "You are refusing evidence." My coworker in the hallway hears the commotion and pokes her head in. The mom turns to her like a demon in a horror movie and hisses, "Close the door. This is between me and her." My coworker did not close the door. The mom then launches into a monologue. A straight 10-minute speech about how I'm intentionally lowering Ethan's self-esteem so he will never rise to his full masculine potential. I honestly didn't know if I was talking to a parent or someone who recently hit their head on a ceiling fan. Finally, when she stops to breathe, I calmly try to bring the conversation back to missing work. She interrupts me and says, "You just want him to fail because he intimidates you." Ethan is 4'11" and cries when asked to read aloud. The principal eventually has to escort her out when she tries to climb over my desk to point at something on my screen. The next day, Ethan comes to class, sits down, and goes, "My mom thinks you're part of a secret teacher cult." I said, "Do you think that?" He shrugged and said, "If you were in a cult, I feel like it would be a boring one." Honestly fair. I taught high school chemistry, and one year I had a parent, a huge guy with the personality of an over-caffeinated drill sergeant who came to the conference with a clipboard and 2 pens clipped to his collar. He sat down and immediately said, "Let's begin the interview." I thought he misspoke. He did not. He grilled me like I was applying to teach his family exclusively. Where did you go to school? What was your GPA? What are your standardized test scores? How often do you lose your temper? If you were a molecule, which would you be and why? He wrote down all my answers. He nodded thoughtfully when I said water. Then he asked if I could provide letters of recommendation. "Sir, I already work here." When I finally brought up his daughter's grades, he put up a finger, silencing me like he was stopping a witness from incriminating themselves. "We're not there yet." He interviewed me for 18 minutes before I finally said, "Sir, this conference is about your daughter." He goes, "Oh, she's fine. I just needed to confirm whether I approve of you." He stood up, shook my hand and said, "You may continue teaching her," and then left. His daughter came to class the next day and said, "My dad thinks you're the least suspicious teacher he's met. Thanks." This one still feels like fever dream. I taught 4th grade, normal parent, normal kid, normal year, until conference day when the mother arrived with another woman wearing a silk shawl, 14 rings, and the expression of someone about to deliver prophecy. The mom announces, "This is our family clairvoyant." I thought she meant therapist. Nope. She meant clairvoyant as in psychic advisor. The psychic says she needs to sense the energy of the room. She waves her hands around, closes her eyes dramatically, and goes, "Yes, there is conflict here." The kid was getting B's. She pulls a crystal out of her bag and places it on my desk like she's arming a bomb. "This stone will reveal the truth about my client's child." "Your client? Girl, what?" She then asks me to put my hand on the crystal so she can measure my academic aura. I refused because I didn't know if this was going to turn into a hexing situation. The psychic nods sagely and says, "She is resisting the truth." Then she tells the mom, "Your daughter is struggling because the teacher's energy is clouded. She has a chaotic spirit." "Ma'am, the only chaotic spirit in this room is the one waving a rock around like it's Bluetooth connected to heaven." I try redirecting back to math scores and reading comprehension, but the psychic interrupts me and says, "I am seeing a vision. Your child cannot thrive until the teacher completes a ritual of cleansing." The mom then asks me when I can perform the ritual. I had to call admin. Admin had to call security. Security had to escort the psychic out because she started chanting. The mom apologized the next day. Sort of. She said the psychic gets passionate. 7th grade math. Girl failing. Never turned anything in. Parent-teacher conference. The stepdad walks in with a folder labeled legal action. He starts off by reading a prepared statement accusing me of educational negligence, emotional manipulation, grade-based oppression, mathematical sabotage. Then he slams a packet of worksheets on the table. "These," he says, "are too hard." The worksheets. Basic fractions. He said I was violating her rights by expecting her to simplify fractions without a calculator. He threatened to sue me, the school, the district, the governor, and the mathematical community. He said fractions were old-fashioned mathematical propaganda. He genuinely tried to schedule a meeting with my lawyer. My lawyer. Sir, I make $39K a year and drive a Corolla with a missing hubcap. When admin came in, he dramatically announced, "Ah, reinforcements." Then he accused them of running an academic cartel. The best part? The kid later told me, he failed 6th grade twice. He hates math. Suddenly it all made sense.